Welcome back to the show. There's no telling where we'll go. So come and share a laugh on the Imp and Skizz podcast.
Every week we sometimes struggle to come up with, actually, I was going to say we struggle to come up with what we're going to talk about. And that's not entirely true because we had a laundry list of items to talk about over the years. And, but every once in a while, sometimes we know what we're going to talk about and just something doesn't feel right about it. So we will shift.
Yeah.
And, as of last night, we were like, let's come on, man.
We were dancing around a few topics.
We were, we just couldn't quite land. And then I had a really interesting conversation with my wife and I'm like, actually, that's a pretty good topic. And, to lead into what this topic is, I think most people know that, I lost my father a handful of months ago, and my brother lost his wife a handful of weeks ago. My wife lost her grandmother in the same week I lost my father. It's just been a bad year.
It's been one after another lately.
The hits just keep coming, right? And so in terms of my father and in terms of my sister-in-law, whom I've known since I was 14, I got to thinking, I told my wife, I said, the problem is I think I'm stuck, just firmly stuck in denial on all this loss right now. I don't think I'm processing it well or something. And it got us talking about, this is not meant to be a bleak podcast by any stretch. It's really about kind of the fascination with the 5 stages of grief.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what we're going to kind of dive into today.
Yeah. Who was it? Elizabeth. I don't even know how to pronounce her last name. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. It's got the U with the dots above, and I think that means you're supposed to pronounce it differently than typical.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway,
Kubler maybe. If it's K with the U with the dots, is it? I actually have no idea.
I have no idea.
Is that Russian? Is that German? I don't know. That's something we probably should have known, but I don't know. That's who it was. Elizabeth.
Yeah, came up with the model, the 5 stages of grief, and it was initially based off of terminally ill people as they learned that they were going to be passing away. I think she saw these stages stand out throughout until they passed on, and so this actually turned out to apply to not just those that are dying, but also those that are grieving for somebody after a passing, but not just even passing. It's just loss in general. Anytime you lose something meaningful to you, you could find yourself in the stages of grief, and whether or not you're going through them one by one or kind of dancing between the different stages, it was kind of shown that most people will experience some of these stages to some extent. Not everybody. Everybody grieves in different ways. So that's something that we probably want to, do a little asterisk around. We're not going to generalize this too much and say this is the way, everybody should feel. They should go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's not that way, right? Everyone deals with grief differently. Yeah. But in general, she had found that this was typically the stages people would go through. Like I said, not necessarily in that order, but in general, until they get to acceptance, which is in this case the final stage.
It's supposed to be the final stage, and that's what I found interesting about this is that I've always been under the impression that the 5 stages of grief were quite literally consecutive. You go through number 1, denial, then you go through anger, then you go through bargaining, then you go through sad depression, and then acceptance. Yeah, that made sense to me, but when I lived it, I'm like, it doesn't really work out it's not really sequential like that. You can hop around a little bit. And that's, just to talk about with, losing my father, I feel like I've kind of experienced all of them, but I found myself back in denial. And let me expand on that. It's because I know that he's passed. I know that logically, but I feel like I just am not. It's like I won't accept it. I can't. It's so hard to explain. It's like I won't accept it. And now I've kind of been in this denial phrase forever, and I have had some depression over it and those have come in little spurts. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden I will just feel, you know what I mean? It just dawns on me in that moment, and I feel and obviously there's been some anger there with it, and I think later on the podcast I would like us to dissect the bargaining piece. I find that to be a very interesting component of just mankind. Mm-hmm. But I've been kind of settled in the denial piece, right? And with my sister-in-law passing, this one is very, very hard because, like I said, I've known her since I was 14, and it's very fresh. It was just a handful of weeks ago.
And it was pretty sudden too.
Pretty sudden,
right?
Yeah. That was a tough one, and she was. And for the record, I feel compelled to state that I actually called my brother last night and I asked his permission to talk about this because I'm like, this is an awful. The bottom line is this is an awful thing. That's the bottom line, and I don't want to turn it into clicks. That's not what this is.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is kind of a serious topic, not meant to be an overly melancholy one, but I want him to know, like, all you got to say is that you're uncomfortable with it, no questions asked. And he's like, no, it's fine. So I feel compelled to say that because, like, even I feel a little weird about it. But so she was stricken with ovarian cancer like a year ago, and went through the journey, right? The chemo and the bouts of chemo, and that didn't work. So let's try this clinical trial. That didn't work. Let's try this clinical trial. And she did everything that she needed to do, and obviously to no avail. However, it was the end was on set so rapidly that they were packing to go on a trip, and then she was gone within a week. Like that's just so heartbreaking, right? And it was a tough ending. And but watching my brother go through that was super hard, and I was kind of I think I skipped denial and went right into anger because, and there's a lot of people listening now who understand this, I think, because when it's something like cancer, there's a lot of justified anger involved, at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then I kind of went back to denial, as in there's just no way. There's just no way. You know what I mean? Like, how can this be so young? Like, this is so awful. Like, it's so frustrating. And watching my brother go through it, it's just so very hard. And I'm just like stuck in denial. Like, I just don't believe it. Like I spent the night at his house that first night that she was gone, and we went through a decent amount of whiskey that night, him and I, and one of his friends, and we watched YouTube videos. I mean, it was one of those things we were all committed to distraction. Yeah. Because it was also like my poor brother was like on 3 days of no sleep, just in the hospital, the whole thing.
Yeah. And which is, it's typical for being in the denial phase is to find distractions.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Do whatever you can to get those distractions. But the whole time I kept expecting her to walk out and give me the nickname, and she knows she's had a nickname for me since I was a teenager, and I just said it's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. So I kind of settled into denial, and I'll figure it out. I got to get that processing, but I just think it's such an interesting concept that we've been able to dissect the journey of grief into these 5 stages.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you said, it's not always going to be about the loss of life. It can be the loss of an object, a loss of a job, loss of status. It can be whatever you want it to be. It can be those things. So do you have any examples? It doesn't have to be a big one. If you have any examples, because I don't want it to be something that you're not comfortable talking about. But
I mean, when it comes to death, I don't deal with death very well. I just don't. And I feel like a lot of times when my loved ones that have been in my family or whatever have passed, that I have firmly planted my roots in the denial stage of it, and maybe never escaped, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or just think that if I give it years upon years, I'll somehow subconsciously move through these stages without even like feeling them, or thinking about them. And that may be true, because I am one of those people that will just like keep myself busy all the time just to distract myself from feeling, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there are things aside from death, because like you mentioned, it's about losing something that you deeply care about, and just life-changing things, events, where your life is heading in a certain direction, and you're really enjoying the way things are, and then suddenly something happens that changes that. Those are the things that I typically like feel, because I don't know if it's because they're not so deep as death that I actually like allow myself to feel them, because like death is so heavy that I do everything I can to kind of bury the emotions, it feels like. Sure. Where other things that are like the life-changing events, and I'll get into one that I can think of off the top of my head, I do see myself more moving through the different stages of grief in those, and be more prevalent. So for instance, my daughter, my middle child, was a gymnast a few years ago, at this point, maybe four years ago. And she was really good. She was doing all the things. Yeah, she was going to regional competitions and getting podium medals and all that. It was a very great time in her life because she was working hard and she was getting the accolades and she was building the self-confidence as a young woman going through sports. And she suffered an injury that took her out of the game, basically. It was like when the doctor told her what her injury was, the doctor basically asked her what else she wants to do other than gymnastics because it was no longer viable option for her, really. And because that had been like our lives at that point, like we were fully, like everything we did was about gymnastics and about, my daughter growing and succeeding and all this stuff. It was like bloop, overnight, that's over. And it was traumatizing.
Yeah.
We lost that. She lost that. And because I knew everything that it was doing for her and her confidence as a young woman, like it was like, oh no, this is not good. Now how's she going to feel after this? She's going to have to like kind of reinvent herself because this became her identity and kind of just lost her identity. At least that's probably the way it felt in her world, right? And it felt in ours too, because we had established a routine of this is what we do. We are gymnastics parents. You know what I mean? Like this is everything. And yeah, it was really tough. And I remember actually going through like all the stages, of grief when this happened. I was in denial at first, like, no, there's got to be something to fix this. A surgery or something, there's got to be, I was, that's the bargaining piece.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we should have, when she complained about her knees kind of hurting, we should have stopped everything and before it got this bad kind of a thing.
Yeah.
You go through the bargaining thing,
Sure.
you go through the anger, like why would this happen to such a healthy young person?
Yep.
Why does the world have to take away her hopes and dreams? You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like there was the anger, there was all of it, and finally, leading to acceptance, which took a long time to just realize like, okay, that chapter is over.
Yeah.
And now it's time to move on and invest in a new chapter. Now what's next for her? What's the next thing that's going to give her that self-confidence that she was getting through sport and accolades and, working hard and seeing the benefit. And we've had podcasts about, the benefits of working hard, and that's what that was for her. It was, she was getting all that. And suddenly we had to find a new way. And so, I went through all those stages and it was obvious, as I was going through them where I was.
Yeah. I get it, dude. And I can obviously identify with that because what my daughter went through. And it was just so crazy for it to happen at what felt like the finish line, right there, all the work that she'd been doing since she was, very, very young and then all the way to get it into D1 collegiately and then work her way to that starting position. And the second she got it, torn ACL. And in that moment, I remember my denial was as brief as they come, because when she went down, the second we've talked about this in another podcast because we watched so much football, because she went down, the way she went down with a non-contact like that, I'm like, that's the ACL. We see it all the time in football. It's awful. Mm-hmm. And basically the best way to put it is it looks like a sniper took out their knee. Like nobody's around them. They just go down. They just crumple, right? You just know. And I'm like, in my brain's like, that's the ACL. And I'm like, no way. Denial, like right away, denial. No way. Nope. No. And then all of a sudden, just anger. You know what I mean? And we didn't even know yet. She had to get the scans and everything. But I'm like, I know what this is. And then at least it's one of the CLs is what it is. It's either the ACL or it's whatever the other one is. MCL. And so I'm like, no way. There's no way. That's what it, and I was furious. And I'll be honest with you, I set up camp in the anger one for a long time. And then my stage of anger got its own roommate of depression. So anger, there was no bargaining. You know what I mean? There was like, we're going to go through the process of what needs to be done here to repair it. Obviously, we're going to do that. But there's no, I mean, I guess, you know what I get? Let me correct myself, because if we're saying that only if is part of it, here's the only if. There is bar. If I had only done this, right? If I had only done this part of bargaining, here's what I could have done. And it's so ridiculous, but maybe if I just followed my instincts, and I would have been known as that crazy dad and nobody would have ever known, and screamed from the top of my lungs before it happened, I don't want my daughter on this field, because that part of the field was so jacked up. And I just knew it. And I was saying it. I'm like, what is wrong with that patch of dirt in between first and second? Why is it like sand? Somebody's going to get hurt. Like, I'm saying this out loud, and then my daughter got hurt. So my if only was, what if I just said, no, I've had it. You can all think I'm crazy, but my daughter's not playing on this field. It would have ruined her college career. You know what I mean? So I had to instead let her college career get ruined. You know what I mean? It was just like it was the worst thing in the world. So that was my bargaining. It was temporary. And then my anger and then depression moved in with anger, and they just fed off each other. And I'm still angry. I can tell you, I have not accepted it. Now I've moved on. I've moved on because I'm not going to dwell, but I've not accepted it as in, hey, this is the way things are. I'm still really, really upset.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's still fairly fresh.
I mean, it's been 2 years. You know what I mean? Like,
hey, what
like,
grief can take.
Yeah. No. Well, it's been 2 years and 3 surgeries. Like, it's been like watching her have to go through that recovery. Every time.
Yeah. I just don't think there's a timetable to how people process grief.
You're right. You're right.
So I wouldn't beat yourself up for not being, past it yet. At the acceptance stage or whatever, because, especially when it's not just that. Pile it on with everything else. I've layering grief for different things all at the same time is its own like significant thing to think about.
Yeah.
How does that work when you're grieving about separate life events?
Yeah.
And you're in different stages for each thing that has happened, but yet maybe none of them have reached the point of full acceptance and moving on.
Dude,
and so you're juggling yourself in different stages depending on your train of thought. Right. 1 second you could be thinking about your dad. The next second you could be thinking about your daughter, and you're balancing those thoughts in different stages of your grief, flipping switches basically in your brain. That cannot be easy.
You're right. Because if you think about it, dude, it's like when you have more than one, when you're going through more than one journey of the 5 stages of grief, they have a tendency to slow one another down.
Yeah.
And it really is quite literally like two. How about this? They're 2 different record players, and you only have 1 power chord, and you got to get through the whole album. You know what I mean? And so you do this, and you're listening. You're like, I have to do this one now. And now I've lost track of how many songs I'm trying to play right now. There's so very many. So like the natural organic journey of grief on these has all been thwarted, and so now it's just like everything sort of came to a standstill. And you kind of feel like you're just just trying to process all of it at once. Like, and now, you know what, dude, let's take this another, again, this is not meant to be a dark podcast, but it's obviously, it's a rough thing right now. I get it. But can you imagine, like, how do you think they deal with this? Like in war, you know what I mean? Like when it's so much loss and it's so up in your face and it's so sudden.
Yeah.
They don't, I think I couldn't even possibly imagine. I was like, think of the, like quite literally think of the opening scene of Saving Private Ryan, right? So much loss, just like that. And these were people who were very, very, very close to each other.
My only guess is the way they get through it is by staying in denial until
you'll feel later.
Things change.
There's no time for emotion right now. I of course I don't know. But I wonder that because it's like, I mean, I guess in that moment, there's no time for emotion. There's only action right now. We'll revisit this awfulness later. We have a mission to do. My goodness.
Yeah. I can't imagine. Yeah. And then the weight of it all hitting you when you have the chance to actually process it.
Yeah. But I think so now I want to talk a little bit more about the bargaining piece, because this is the piece I find to be very interesting. Because I think it has 2 dynamics. I think it has, when the loss in general is something that's irreversible, like death, there's not bargaining to undo the death, but there is if I'd just done this, if I just,
what if, the what ifs, you start to question, those come in.
Like associated with regret, right? But then there's types of loss where bargaining has a different dynamic. And let's take something as simple as, I don't want to say simple, but something as like a romantic breakup. One person breaks up with the other person, right? And that they're going to be, no, you're not breaking up with me. What are you talking about? We're fine. I'm in denial, right? I'm fine. I'm doing this. And then they're going to move on to some anger over it. And then you see it all the time. Well, I can change. I can make these changes. I'm bargaining at this point. I can change your mind, you know, and
I'll be a better person.
I'll be a better person. Sometimes
all
it works.
the things that made you not want to be with me, I can fix.
Yeah, I can fix all those things. Yeah. And maybe sometimes it works, you know, who knows? But it's like that the bargaining has taken on a different dynamic in that aspect where you're actually bargaining. Well, what if I do this? Can we undo the loss?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like that, it's a trade. It's like they're actually like talking the price down on a used car. You know what I mean? Like how about this? I will go out with my guys 2 times less a week. You know what I mean? Like whatever. I'm just making stuff up, right? And it's just something to that effect, right? And they're actually trying to change the outcome. But in the world of where it's finite, then it's just a if I had only. And it's more associated with regret, you know, and that makes me sad. You know, like with my dad, is there anything I could have done? I don't know. He was unhealthy for a very long time. And I don't know. I think I just knew where he was in his mind, and he was not going to ever turn it around. You know, it just wasn't going to happen, you know? And
I mean, there's a lot of talk about not living in the past, right? Yeah. Because you could really go down a dark rabbit hole there of the what ifs and I should haves and all that kind of stuff. And we don't have time machines yet. Yeah. I'm still holding out hope.
Hey, we'll never make them, because if we could, we would already know about it.
I know. No, I know. I've seen Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. It doesn't. And no, like the butterfly effect and stuff, like is a real, you know, a real, it could be a real thing, I suppose. Yeah. But anyway, it's not a good place to live, you know, in the past and dwell on the past. We've heard that philosophy many times, and I do agree with it, as much as I find myself not being able to stay away from that line of thinking as a human being. It is not a great place to live, because that's just going to drive you into more of the depression, and you know, you may be bargaining and I should have done this stuff, but that's just going to lead to the depression of, I should have. You come to this conclusion that you should have done something, but I didn't, so now I'm going to be depressed about it. I don't think that's a great place to dance around in too long, but it happens, you know, and we need to acknowledge the fact that that's kind of how humans will try to rationalize things, you know. And it makes sense.
It does. And there's nothing to say that you can't learn something from it. Sometimes that bargaining state, I think, can be kind of a stepping stone in somebody's growth overall. Sometimes when we experience loss, that if I had only sets in, and you get to be like, well, you know, at least I'll never have this regret again. You know, when I'm faced with this scenario, I know what my if only was, you know, and maybe I'll fix it. And that's part of growing.
Yeah, you're right. There are certain situations where when you do question that you can actually learn something from it and apply it in the future. You know, it's like with my daughter and her injury, and we said, well, if we had only, you know, addressed it sooner or realized it was bigger than we thought it was. Yeah. You know, we had that with Prim. My dog, she experienced IMHA, which is what's it called? It's a neuro. Her blood cells attack themselves. Yeah. Autoimmune disease, and we knew something was wrong, but we didn't put a lot of stake into it. You know what I mean? We're like, she's acting differently. She's lethargic. She's, you know, we thought she was just getting old because she was 10 years old. You know, and we're like, oh, it's just signs of aging. And we didn't think much of it. And by the time it got bad enough for us to be like, wait, no, this is more than aging, it was like almost too late that we almost lost her. And so I went through stages of grief with that. Luckily, we didn't lose her, but at the same time, we almost did, you know? And so it had us going through the stages of grief. And there was a lot of what ifs, you know, what if we didn't wait so long? Maybe she wouldn't have needed 5 blood transfusions and 10 days in a hospital. You know what I mean? To barely make it. Maybe she would have never gotten to. She definitely would have never gotten to as poor of a state as she did, to where she was, you know, minutes from death. Yeah. If we had just taken care of it earlier. So there was that thought, and that's okay, because now we're hyper vigilant about it. You know, we see any sort of change in her and we're like, we're not screwing around anymore.
Yeah.
Like, let's make sure this is not a flare up, and we go and we get her checked, you know? And so it could help prevent us from getting to that stage again, potentially, you know? So yeah, there is definitely a space where it is good to have that as well.
Yes. You also might see one of your friends' pets go through something similar and you're like, I know what that is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And now all the awfulness you went through can be leveraged as unbelievably valuable information for somebody else, because they're gonna be like, I don't even know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? You can get way ahead of it. You know what I mean? So we find ourselves, we do this as humans. You know what I mean? We kind of find our way to the best of our abilities. I didn't look it up, but I'm curious as to when that model when it was created. You know what I mean? Because whenever, you know, I'm big in Maslow's pyramid and all that stuff. Whenever we're able to kind of bring an elevated clarity or illustration to human motivation and human intent or human behavior like this, I find it very fascinating. Yeah. And because it gives you sort of a new light, and I think it gives you some permission to conduct yourself a certain way, right? And it helps shed light on behavior in general, right? When I left my 20-year career to become a full-time content creator, that was a form of loss.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And
absolutely.
It was a self-inflicted loss. You know what I mean? In pursuit of something bigger. And I kind of felt it all. Like I felt all of it. You know what I mean? Obviously there was a little bit of denial, but it was weird. Like, am I really doing this? Like, who works on a career for 20 years in a company that thinks very highly of them?
That's what we went to school for.
I know.
We worked all that schooling to do this thing that we're now gonna leave.
I know.
It was wild. It was absolutely crazy. Wild. And like everyone I knew thought I was crazy.
Yes. Everyone was like, dude, you can't do this. And that makes a decision a lot easier when everybody doubts you. And and for the record, not everybody did. I had some people who were like, "This is the right thing for you." Like they're like, "This is going to be great for you," but there was a little bit of that denial. There's no way I'm doing this. You know what I mean? There's just no way. And then there was believe it or not, there was some anger, like being angry at myself. Like, this is a really, really reckless, stupid decision. What are you doing? You're risking everything for this. You know what I mean? And I'll be honest with you, dude. Believe it or not, there was bargaining as well. The bargaining was, well, it's, you know, I can always come back to this industry if I need to. You know what I mean? Meanwhile, my brain's like, not really. I mean, you kind of can, but you're going to start all over and you might be way behind the 8 ball. You know what I mean? Like you're getting older. What are you doing? You know, like this is, so you go back and forth, and a little bit of depression, because I miss a lot of my colleagues and I miss certain things about that job.
Yeah. You were very good at it.
I was good at it, and I liked the people, and I enjoyed being a part of bringing the best out of people. And as much as they always wanted me to move into management, I knew it was nothing I wanted to do. I wanted to sort of, it's so crazy, bro. They wanted me to move into management, but I didn't want to, because I see what management has to put up with and what they have to do, but I wanted to have a similar effect. And so that's just how I was with people. So I enjoy that part. I'm a little bit of depression that I missed that part of it, because I was so close to these people. And then the acceptance was, well, you know, this is what you did. You know what I mean? This is what you did, and you're in this world now, and this is what you're doing. So lean all the way in, man. You know, but I'm really glad we're having this podcast, because like I said, I thought it was sequential. I thought you went in this order, and it's not. You pop all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes you'll visit a stage multiple times. Yeah. You know, some people could skip a stage entirely. You know, there's no saying that you have to go through all 5 stages.
Yes.
So grief is different for everybody.
Yeah.
You know, and like I said, I feel like sometimes when things are so heavy that I bury them so deep in my mind because of stage 1, and I just live there as long as I can until I kind of subconsciously travel through the other stages, and time heals the wounds. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Time does what it's supposed to do without you ever having to actually address those stages. Yeah. And it's funny, because do you see denial as like similar to avoidance? You see those kind of the same thing? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You just
you keep yourself busy, you know, don't think about it. and eventually, have you ever had that where you get in a fight with your wife or whatever, and it's like, if we just, and you're
We
not
don't
supposed
talk
to
about it.
You're not supposed to go to bed angry. I get that because it'll fester, but like sometimes it's just like it's one of those fights where you just know that if you just give it some time, and you're both gonna realize it wasn't that big of a deal, and then you can just forget about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's kind of where I'm at with a lot of things. Like I'm just like, if we just give it time to heal, it'll be fine. It's not, some things are worth addressing. Don't get me wrong. It's not like I don't communicate with my wife when we have disagreements.
That sometimes whatever it is that needs to be talked about is like with let's just take the wife for example. You have, if there's like a crazy spat that you both are aware it's just the silliest thing, yeah, you get to the other side of it. But sometimes it's like, no, we have to talk about this, because if we don't, we will move on, but we will be less than. You know what I mean? We will. That's what's going to happen. And so it's, and my wife and I, we've been together a very long time, and we've had, or you can't be together this long and not have arguments. You know what I mean? And they are very few and far between. And honestly, I think the number one reason they're so few and far between is because both of us have gotten into a state to where a fraction of what used to bother us when we were younger bothers us today. It's just such trivial nonsense back in the day. You know what I mean? And we were both you knew us when we were younger. We're both very type A. You know what I mean? And that, and not, I mean, really think of this dynamic, dude. We're both type A. She is the oldest of all of her siblings and all of her cousins. I am type A. I am the youngest of all my siblings and all my cousins. That is a huge dichotomy. And it's like, I'm a different, her type A comes from, since she was always the oldest, then in her family, she was always sort of the authoritative figure for all the kids. I was the other end of the spectrum, to where my insight and opinion meant nothing, because I was the bottom. I was the youngest. Nobody meant to do that, but that's just what it was. Yeah. Whatever, if anybody was taking votes on what we were doing, I had no vote. And so my type A was born out of, I'm a very independent person. And I don't fit into the mold of just wait to tell me where to go. I'm going to make my own decisions. You know what I mean? So my type A came from that. Her type A came from that the authoritative figures placed it on her. This is your job. You know what I mean? So you have this label. Obviously you're right for it. This is what you do. Yeah. And so then her and I get together, and it's just like, boom, unstoppable, unmovable, and we had some arguments that we worked through. So now we live in a space to where we argue about so very little, because it really comes from not a space of not wanting to argue. We are in such a state of wanting to support the other person no matter what. Yeah. And to that end, it's like the amount of times that one of us will be like, I don't think we should do it that way, but let's do it. You know what I mean? Like before it'd be like, no, we should not do it that way. We're not going to do it that way. You know what I mean? And now it's like, no.
Stand your ground.
Exactly.
And fight to the death.
Yeah. But now it's like, tell me what you need. You know what I mean? Let me hear about, let's hear about what you need, and let's see how we can get you there. Yeah.
There's a whole nother topic there about marriage and communication and all that, because as I was thinking like, why do we actually, a lot of what could be fights that I could end up in with my wife, a lot of times we just realize, they're very stressed right now. They haven't been sleeping well. Probably just a poor choice of words, and we give each other benefit of the doubt. And there's huge, respect there for each other to try to really understand where we're coming from. Because a lot of times emotions can get the best of us, Yeah. And I mean, what we're talking about with grief is very deeply rooted in our emotional states, right? And so it's really good to try to understand where people are coming from, based off intent and what words could have come out because of these external factors that they're dealing with. You know, they could be in the anger stage of grief, so they're going to lash out more. And the best thing you can do is understand that and be there for them. Yeah,
No, that's an astute observation, because there's been the same exact. I've had moments where I've been in a bad state and I've responded to something in a pretty negative fashion, and my wife will just be like, okay, we're just going to put a pin in that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She's like, you're going through this. It's fine. Just listen. But,
It's one of my favorite phrases is put a pin in that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, I haven't used that in a very long time until you brought it back. and just to give the audience some perspective of what I'm talking about, this was several weeks ago. We were here to record a podcast, and we had gotten really awful news the night before, very awful news the night before. And it was one of those things where it's like, oh, this is not just bad. This has the capacity to be very bad. And this has the capacity to go on for a very long time and have very lasting damage, right? I'm not going to get into details of what it is. But it was, we were like 20 seconds from going live on the pre-show. And I just said what it was, like an idiot. And you're all, what? And I said it again. And then you looked at the clock. It's counting down. You're all, okay, let's put a pin in that. Yeah. It was so funny, dude. It was so funny. And then we put a pin on it. And then we talked about it later. But I remember in that moment too, being like, why did I just say that? What did I do? Because it was so fresh. I mean, it was literally a handful of hours new. And I was just like, it was such a foolish thing, but your face was just like, did you just drop that A-bomb on me 20 seconds before?
Come on, man. We're about to be in front of people.
I know.
You're not even giving me a chance to process this. I can't even get into denial yet.
I dropped this bomb and you're like, and we're live in 5, 4. It was just unbelievable.
Oh, man.
That's what we do though, man. And actually that's a good point, because that was so fresh that I was in a mixture between denial and anger, and you mix those things together and you're not thinking clearly. Right. And that's very much what was happening. I was not thinking clearly in that moment, dude.
Yeah.
Man, what a year it's been.
Could you imagine, wasn't there that show I have never watched this for some reason, Black Mirror.
So good.
I don't know if it was that or something else I'm thinking of. But could you imagine if people, as they walked around, had this is what's going on with that person displayed for everyone to see?
We do it with emojis now.
Right.
Yeah.
So as you talk to somebody, they're keenly aware you're currently processing, the recent death of a loved one.
Yeah.
Or whatever kind of thing you're dealing with. We all deal with lots of things on the daily, right?
Yep.
Not all of it's grief worthy, but it's going to trigger certain emotions in us. Could you imagine if it was blatantly clear to everyone you spoke to where you were actually at in your mind as you were speaking to them, and how much that would change the conversation and the understanding of why words come out a certain way, why a tone is delivered in a certain way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That would make a world of difference, because, communication is one of the most challenging things we do as a species. It's very, very difficult, and we've only made it harder by changing the main medium of the way we've communicated lately. You know what I mean? Here's another podcast topic, but communicating in text, online, all those kind of things, we lose so much in that it just dawned on me, if you could actually have a full-blown, this is what's going on in my brain as people talk to you, I think we would be a much more understanding and empathetic human beings towards each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, this is, you bring up a good point, and you're right. This is almost another topic, but if we could, then just overall communication would be elevated to a level that we as humans probably didn't think was possible. So the idea of being able to overwhelmingly identify and be compassionate for a stranger across the planet at the same level that you're compassionate for your own wife, this is kind of an impossible feat, but it's still maybe a goal we should be trying to reach. But we're not going to get there unless we're deliberate about trying to get there. And here, my example of this is, you're right, because medium has changed so much. Many years ago, we had the person running our whole organization, the highest guy running our organization. I love him. I always have. He would say email's not a communication tool, and that was the thing. That was the thing he would start to peddle to people, and I like him very much, and I've told him he's one of the few people I would follow off a cliff. Yeah, I can count it on one hand, and he's one of them. that meant the world to him. You know what I mean? And he thought very highly of me, but I disagreed with him on this. And one of our colleagues was trying to kind of jump onto that phrase. He's like, well, you guys have to understand, email's not a communication tool. And I said, yes, it is. And I mentioned the name of the boss. I said, I know he thinks it isn't, but it is. We just don't use it right. And I was like, well, you can't just write it off. It is a communication tool. We just do it poorly. So until we make a deliberate effort to just pump the brakes, man, before even like everything comes to giving it a little bit more thought. And so pump the brakes before you say this to this person, pump the brakes before you send that email and stuff like that. Then maybe communication's going to get a little bit better for us. But until then, we're going to be a bit stuck because we're communicating faster than ever before. Air quotes, communicating faster than ever before these days.
Yeah. And there's emojis. I overuse emojis. There's tone tags now. So like people are trying to come up with these ways of like delivering messages so that people can read them in the same way they meant it to be read. Which is very difficult. But do you remember our analogy? I think we've given on the podcast before of like I'm not going to get mad at that person for cutting me off because maybe they have to poop. You know what I mean? Like this is what we're talking about is like trying to understand that there's way more going on in our lives, in our headspaces than people give each other credit for. And, we'll try to maybe get back to the topic of grief here, but like grief is one thing that people could be juggling. They could be in any one of the 5 stages. We don't know it because you don't go around advertising it. We don't have those Post-it notes stuck to our foreheads that said, I'm sorry if I lash out today. I'm in the anger stage of grief because I just lost a loved one. You know what I mean? Like we need to be more understanding, I think, of people because we all have a lot going on. And that's, I think that, in the subject of grief, like especially in the subject of balancing multiple stages of grief because you've dealt with multiple things in a very short time frame, that it should be allowed to be understood that you're not always going to be fully with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. My brother many years ago said something to me that was along the lines of the being cut off in traffic, like maybe they have to poop. But he said, and he was more talking about somebody who's like kind of deliberately being overly rude. And I don't go in the public eye and somebody takes a liking to you whom you've never met before and they just want to cause you pain or discomfort. It happens. This is what it is. And my brother said to me, he goes, I see those people and I remind myself that person's either having a really bad day or a really bad life. And he's like, in either way, I don't wish to pour on. And I'm like, dude, that's so like, that was such a wise sentiment. You know what I mean? And I was just like, dude, I'm so into that approach. I'm so into it. And so that's when I started to really, because hold on, let me rephrase that. I'd like to believe I was never really quick to judge people, but I have to entertain that, especially in my younger days. I'm sure I was.
Oh man. Yeah.
But I was always like, from that point on, I just tried to give people the grace that I thought they deserved, Now, don't get me wrong. If they get to a point to where they're going to cause immediate danger to me or my loved ones around me, then there's no grace is off the table. I'm going to do what needs to be done. You know what I mean? Because that's different. You know what I mean? Now you're not going to cause permanent damage in my life because of whatever's going on in yours, right? But I also don't need to fan any flames here. You know what I mean? I'm not going to do that. So let's just, and because of that, I think I've been able to talk a lot of people off the ledge, you know what I mean? Or avoid certain situations where a lot of my friends would have lost their minds. And, we talked about it, dude, we talked about it in that podcast about maybe they got to poop one when I was,
which one was that, by the way?
I don't know what we were talking about.
Somehow we ended up there. I have no idea. Maybe the anger one.
I think
it was probably the anger one.
I think it was anger, dude. I think it was anger. And I think I told this story where I was, I had gotten so good at just trying to show compassion for complete strangers who were, air quotes, wronging me, that it started to, it wasn't that it was no longer difficult, is that it was very easy to do. And that was the stage I wanted to get to. And my buddy, who I love dearly, and he is, has very real anger issues, and there's no such thing in his mind, none of giving people grace in moments where they've upset him. None. So you got to be thinking, why are you friends with this guy?
Just living with a zero tolerance policy.
Zero tolerance.
Wow.
And it's got to the point to where, I'll be honest with you, it is, I have no idea how he's still around, because he's such a hothead that I don't know how he's made it. What it means is that people have shown him an outstanding amount of grace. And this is one of those people that on paper, I'm not going to hang, you're out. For some reason, I can't shake him. I'm not trying to shake him. I want him in my life. I love him. You know what I mean? And we have a good time together. And I like who he is. I do. He's a very good dude. He's got a hot button. Well, he was at my house, and I don't even remember where we were going. And I'm driving. And as I'm driving, this woman steps in front of my car, and she just like the most, not even like, it was like she was waiting for a car to step in front of. And she just walked right in front of my car, and I put on the brakes, and she puts up her hands like, I've done something wrong here. And I just kept my foot on the brake. I don't know what she's going through in her life. She was trying to cause some sort of problem, and no acknowledgement. And she went on her way, and he was livid. And he's like, what is this? And I'm like, I don't know. And so I was driving, I went on with my story, and he wasn't listening at all. And he's like, dude, I'm sorry. I want to hear your story. What is going on? He's like, why are we not back there right now? And I said, what do you want to do? He's like, dude, she stepped in front of your car, and then now she's blaming you. And I'm like, yeah, I know, that can be pretty annoying, but what are you going to do? And he's like, we go back. And I said, why do you want to go back? And he's like, because he's like, she can't be doing this to people. And I'm like, if that's why you want to go back, then I'll go back right now. If your intent is that you want to see if you can help educate her that she's going to do that to the wrong person and you're looking out for her, I'll turn around right now. But I don't think that's your intent. You want to yell at her. He's like, I want to yell at her. I'm like, I'm not turning around. I'm like, nothing gets better. And he was like, I don't know how you are the way you are. I just don't get it. You know what I mean? I'm like, because the other way sucks, bro. Look at you.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, and I don't know what he took from that or whatever. And I'm not bulletproof.
Jumped right to the anger.
Yeah. Just right to
Face.
it. Just wanted to engage instantly.
Yeah.
You know, and it's so we were at a bar together one time, and it was not a great place, but one of the workers there had pushed through really hard and to get through the crowd, and they bumped him. They bumped everybody because we were so shoulder to shoulder, which is, I hate places like this. And he mouthed off big time to this worker, as in, you know, don't push me. He was very aggressive about it. And the guy turns around, and I'm like, well, here we go. And the guy was like, you could tell he was like, I don't care about my job this much. I'll drop you right now. And so I just got in between them, and I just stood like nothing, just stood in between them. No words, no pushing, no shoving, just there's another whole human you got to get through if you want to get to my boy. You know what I mean? And the guy was not that much of a hothead. He realized it was just silly, and he turned around and walked away. And I'm like, dude, you can't be doing that, man. You know, to my buddy, I'm like, you can't do that. Because you don't know. It's going to be the wrong person with a gun or something, dude. Come on, you know, like, come on, man. God.
Yeah, that's scary.
How do we get on that?
Yeah. Yeah, we got a little bit off track from that.
That's the anger piece of grief. I don't know. That's
we're stuck in anger.
I'm sorry. Actually, I do actually genuinely apologize. That went way off the rails.
Yeah. No. So how do we bring it back to what we're talking about here? Because I think that what we find about the stages of grief is that it is a bit fascinating that we find ourselves actually going through them, and that we find a lot of truths to this model that Elizabeth came up with whenever. Yeah. We still don't know the date. I'm sure we'll find some comments now thanks to talking about it.
Yeah, we want to see it.
But I think, you know, as we talk about this, I think the one thing that I'd like to do is talk about the positive part, right? Yeah. Because this does feel like a heavy conversation. It can get people analyzing where they're at in stages of grief right now, which doesn't always feel great to acknowledge it. Meaning, you know, like I said, I'm in denial for most things I'm grieving about. And so this could be a negative thing, but grief in general and getting through the stages and getting, you know, to the point of acceptance is a form of growth, right? You're going to find yourself on the other side, in the most part, a better person. You know, it's necessary as humankind to kind of process things the way we do, so that it's kind of like, and I don't know if this is true. Maybe somebody out there knows, but have you heard the philosophy that, like, when you break a bone and it heals itself, it's stronger? Yeah. You know what I mean?
I've heard this.
Kind of looking at grief, you know, whether that's true or not, I don't know, but kind of looking at grief in that light. Yeah. You know what I mean? When things happen, they're really bad and it sucks, and why me and why them and in cases and you go through all that, but then you get on the other side and you're kind of like a stronger person. It's kind of like left that mark on you that becomes more of a badge.
Yeah.
Afterwards.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I think grief, as rough as it can be, is also pretty necessary for growth in humans.
Yeah, it's one of the things. It's like a scab that grows over. You got a scar, and the skin's a little bit thicker there now. You know, and that's the unfortunate fact. And the kind of the downside of all that is it's akin to pressure can either make diamonds or bust pipes, right? So sometimes it goes in the other direction.
Yeah.
We've seen that too.
Oh, I mean, it's the depression stage, of it. And this is kind of silly example, but I think it is relevant because almost everybody, kind of lived through this together. It was the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
The pandemic was something to grieve over.
Yes, it was.
We lost something. We all did. We
Everybody.
lost our normal way of life for a good while. And with just the idea of the pandemic, there was all of it. There was denial, like, no, it's not that bad. It's not, no. You know what I mean? We're not going to have to quarantine and no.
Yeah, this hasn't been a thing in 100
Yeah.
years. Yeah.
That was there. And then it was like, oh my gosh, I can't go anywhere. Anger, you know what I mean? Like, what am I supposed to do? I have to, I need people and I'm not supposed to be around people. I have to wear this mask. They're making me wear this. You know what I mean? Like you have all that stuff. Right, going on.
You're hitting on something huge right now, dude. Keep going, please.
I'm just thinking about the way I went through it, right?
From a societal standpoint, it went through these stages.
Oh yeah,
you're naming all of it, dude.
Yeah, bargaining. If we had only contained it, before it got so big.
Well, and the bargaining also of people pivoting their businesses and stuff like that. Like, okay, I'm not, but what if I do follow these rules and then we can still sort of kind of have our normal way of life if you come pick this up here, this food here, follow these protocols and take it to a park to where you can do the 6 feet of distance. The businesses did this.
Yeah.
And the premise being that like, we can maybe sort of maintain our normal life if we do this. So there's like the bargaining was part of it.
And then there was the depression. The depression was rough. I mean, I'll never get over my youngest at the time was bawling every day when she had to do online classes. She was bawling her eyes out. She hated it, and it just wasn't working, and it was so rough to see her do that. There was the feeling that, oh, this is never going to end, or this is the end of mankind if you want to go to doom. Your mind goes to doom and gloom, and if that's the case, I might as well do what I want. I'll order food every night, and suddenly I gained a ton of weight because I was depressed about the situation and stuff, and then you finally get to the point to where, over time it was like, okay, all right, you kind of start to adjust and this is the new norm for now.
Yeah.
And you accept it. And that was it, So yeah, the pandemic alone, I think, was a good example that I think most of us can relate to. And I know for a fact I went through the 5 stages during.
I do too. But here's the thing, here's a dynamic I think is lost on people, specifically with the pandemic, is that the anger stage meant something different to everybody. And what I mean by that is, you and I, the adults, we lost our normal way of living, but children, they lost something they'll never get back. And that is infuriating because they lost grades of school.
So many kids never got a prom.
They never got a prom.
They never got to go to prom.
Yeah.
They, like these rite of passages in our culture.
Yeah.
And prom's one example. There's many, depending on cultures and whatnot, but there's so many things that they missed because of it. You're right. They'll never get back. And that was infuriating.
They'll never get it back. Entire teams, like these kids have been working their whole lives to make this team and they finally made it. And then the entire sports season was shut down. Like they worked all that and you're never going to get it. It's gone. It's gone. You know what I mean? So we had to deal with, it's not a normal way of life. And they were losing something that they don't get to go back and get.
Yep.
That's hard, man.
Yeah, it was rough.
And they had a whole new level. And you and I were angry about how our normal way of life had changed, but we were extra layer angry at watching what was happening to the kids who were losing things that they were never going to get back. So from a societal standpoint, it was going through the journey together, all the denial, all the anger, all the bargaining, all the depression, which was like huge, dude. And then everybody saying, well, it is what it is, And I remember the guy I'm telling you about too, that I was talking about earlier, when it was happening in the beginning, like the very beginning stages of it, like mask mandates and stuff like that. He says, is this my life for the rest of my life? And I said, no. And he's like, how can you be sure? And I was like, it's not. Yeah, I promise you it's not. You're not going to always have to do this social distancing and wear these masks in public settings for the rest of your life. It's not a thing, dude. I'm like, this happened 100 years ago. They did the same thing. And I was like, it's not, trust me. And I will say it did last longer than I anticipated, but we're back to normal now, dude. And now, I mean, I go to I'll be going to, a collegiate football game this weekend. And I wish I could say to everybody there, because there will obviously be countless thousands of people there. I wish I could say to everybody, I hope everybody is happy. And I mean, legitimately happy, because this was a thing of the past not too long ago. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like the idea of being in a packed arena, not going to happen. Do you remember how baseball games, there was nobody in the stands because there couldn't have people? Like, it's crazy.
I had my youngest now plays volleyball. Mm-hmm. And so I had a parent who had a daughter in volleyball years ago during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And he was telling me about like the fact that they couldn't go to watch their games. There was like, they were playing for nobody. Yes. You know what I mean? Yeah. And like in some of them, like were, they mandated even masks during play, which was like, wow. Yeah. But I can't imagine trying to breathe as an athlete through a mask. But anyway, that him explaining what that was like for his daughter at that time, and then sitting there watching the game surrounded by people, really just struck that right then. Like you gain a whole new appreciation, and that's like getting to the other side, right? Of grief, is you can almost appreciate things more once you've gotten to the acceptance stage,
Absolutely, dude. Absolutely. And that is something I mean, this is something worth doing on the daily. You know what I mean? Is understand how fortunate we are for everything we have. I am so fortunate that when we're done recording here, that I can walk to the car and drive home. I mean, that sounds crazy, but like I feel lucky for that. I do. I feel happy for that. Yeah. Like we have so much that we just so take for granted that it's not till it's pulled away that we have to go through the stages of grief without knowing that it was like, let's just, you ready for this, dude? Like, I'm trying to figure out how to say this without getting all silly about it, but we're filming this podcast. I'm going to go home. I'm going to edit it and we're going to upload it, because we've done that how many 100 times now? But maybe that's not what's going to happen. I mean, I might, what if I die on the way home? You know what I mean? It might. Mm-hmm. And you will be thrust into this that you never saw it come. You'll be thrust into the journey of the 5 stages of grief. I mean, at least I assume you might be a little sad, but you'll be thrust into the 5 stages.
I'm going to be angry that I have to edit the podcast. No, I'm just kidding.
No, you'll go right to bargaining and hire an editor.
No, I would be so distraught. There would be no podcast.
There would be, that would be, but the bottom line is that like every time I leave, you don't think about that being a possibility. I don't think about that being a possibility. We take all of this for granted.
We do.
You know what I mean? And it's like, this is a good moment to realize like there's a lot of value in just slam on the brakes and just remind yourself what you're grateful for.
Yeah, we hear it like, and it becomes cliche and a bit of a meme, but like, have a moment of gratitude. You know what I mean? Like you hear it and it does. It sounds cliche, but it is true. Like you really should take a moment every day to just think about what you're grateful for, because you never know when it's going to be your last, which is a whole nother topic. But one thing I got it during the 75 hard. It was mandatory that I do reading as part of the 75 hard. So I read a lot of books. And I'll be honest, since 75 Hard's been over, I haven't done a lot of reading since, but I should. One of the things I read was about this city, and I wish I could remember the name of it. I'm terrible at remembering these kind of details, but this city is known to have the highest population of people that are happy in them. There's some sort of study that proves this place is the place with people that their happiness level was the highest in all of the world, right? I don't know how they came to this conclusion, but there's some sort of way to do it. And so people go there to research. Why is that? It's not like this place is, technical marvel of the world or anything like that, to where you would think, and the amount of money they make is more than anyone. It's not by far, right? But they're the happiest people on the planet. What they found was one of their things that they do is they contemplate their own mortality every day. They make an effort every day to think about their own death. And therefore, what it makes them do is they live life more to its fullest. They enjoy every moment they have because they've considered their own mortality on the daily, so that day they know I'm reminding myself this could be my last day on this earth.
Wow.
And I'm not going to take it for granted. And they're much happier people because of it. Yeah. Somebody in the comments will know exactly what I'm talking about, and they will remind me the name of this place, and then I will forget it tomorrow. But it's the story lives within me now forever.
That's amazing, dude. What's crazy is it reminded me of another book where it was about these people where they would live longer than the average person. And when they did I'm forgetting the name of the book. It's a very famous book about
the red zones or something like that.
No,
because that was about nutrition and health mostly. If that's something.
Well,
different.
That's just it, right? Is that they were trying to figure out does this group of people, do they live longer? Is it because of the way they eat? And then they looked at what they ate and like, no, they should almost all be dead because this is very unhealthy. But they were so naturally happy because they had removed a component of society that you and I have grew up in, which
blue
is
zones, not red zones. Anyway, sorry,
it's brain processing. Where they basically had gotten to a state to where status was something very different to them. You know what I mean? Like how much money somebody made, it had meant nothing.
Life stressors,
stuff like that. Yeah,
were relieved somehow.
Yeah, the neighborhood was all very family oriented, and they were touching on a different part of the soul and the mind that I think lies dormant in a lot of us, and so they were able to experience life differently, and because of that, they were like living longer than like the rest of the world. It's like the craziest thing in the world when you look at what they eat. It's like, this is making it like, do we know anything? You know what I mean? Like that's so much cholesterol, but like I'd have to look at what is Outliers. That's the name of the book.
Outliers, okay.
Outliers, dude. And I hope I didn't butcher that, but that was I think it's the book Outliers, and it was I haven't even finished it, but that was one of the short stories in it, and. But it's like what you're saying, dude. They lived life to the fullest, and they didn't. If you live in the past, you're living in regret. If you live in the future, you're living with anxiety. Live now. Now. Be here now. This is why, and I think it's become more. I'm more in tune with it now. This is why I tell my wife every single day, like how much I love her every day. You know what I mean? And I tell her what I appreciate about her, because you just it's just, you never know. You never know, dude. Yeah. Ever.
Yeah. So I guess that's one thing to take out of this. You know, if people aren't doing that, if you're not waking up every day and taking a moment to feel grateful and as rough as it sounds, maybe consider your own mortality, because what I learned from reading the story about this community is it really can do wonders for your happiness levels. Yeah. And I do it from time to time. I can't say I do it daily, but I do it from time to time. I try to remind myself how lucky we are to be able to wake up every day. Yes. And be the way we are, have the things we have, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because it could end
like that, man. Like that. Absolutely like that. And that's I've had my own stresses in regards to what if all of everything I'm doing now goes away? And I'm like, don't, that's living in anxiety, man. Yeah. Don't do that. And if that's the case, you'll get another job, you'll figure it out, but I got to get my head's, like I said, I'm not bulletproof. It's not like sometimes I'll be like, I woke up every day this week with extreme anxiety. You know what I mean? I'm like, that is no way to live. And so to that end, I've been joking on my stream. I've been joking on my streams lately that I went to the gym. Yeah, working on my swole. Yeah, it's been 3 days. I've gone for 3 days.
I like the stance.
Yeah.
He puffs up his shoulders and chest out. And go to the gym over that way.
Yeah. I haven't been really working out. It's not it's a good. And I want, but here's the deal though. Who knows, dude? I just started, so I don't really have a leg to stand on, but I used to do a lot of gym when I was younger and was huge into it, was a coach in the whole thing, and I let it go forever. And it's nice to be back in it. But I found myself when I go to the gym, again, brand new, but I go to the gym and I'm not trying to get through the workout. I'm not trying to live in the future to get to the end of it. I'm just there and just being there, doing it, being part of being grateful that I can even do any of this, and just loving every bit of it. And I'm like, dude, I want to live right in the present. Like every rep, I want to feel every rep. I want to feel the pain of every rep, everything I'm doing, the miserable bit of every bit of it. I just want to embrace it in that moment and just feel and be present. Don't live in the past. Don't have all this regret that why did it take me so long to get here? Don't live in the future of I got to get to the other side of this workout because I don't want to be here. Don't do that. Just be there. You know what I mean? This is weird. We
spun off of grief just a little bit.
I don't even care.
I don't care either.
It's my body. I do what I want.
think it was a great conversation to have.
Yeah,
and
it is.
And hopefully it was maybe therapeutic for some of you because I feel like it was therapeutic for me.
Well, it was also enlightening for me. Like honestly, I learned something during talking about this, and one of them is that grief is not only something we need to go through to get to the other side of things, but to make the front side of future things more bearable, because you're going to have more experience. You're going to have more data. Mm-hmm. You're going to give yourself a little bit more grace on how to feel and everything. I'm still working on it myself. Like I said, I'm deeply rooted in denial right now with a lot of the loss.
You've got a lot of Post-it notes.
A lot of Post-it notes. Do a lot of records, and we have one power cord for each one. So that's. Records are old vinyls that
they know they watched last week's.
I know. All right. I don't have any other further lessons. Not that I ever really have any meaningful lessons, but I hope you enjoyed today's podcast.
Yeah.
And I almost feel like I kind of want to get ahead of something. We do plan on having a podcast next week. Mm-hmm. We feel like we know what it's going to be. It's going to be, let's see, this comes out. It will be, is it a spoiler to say? Mm-hmm. Okay, so we can't.
It's kind of a spoiler.
It's kind of a spoiler. We're not going to say it, but it'll be a fun.
People will figure it out when you know. When you know, you know.
When you know, you know.
You'll know.
Yeah, when you know, you know, and you'll know.
You'll figure it out.
And then we're going to take a little break after that. We don't know how long, how many weeks we're going to do that, but we're going to take another break, another seasonal break in between seasons 2 and 3.
Yeah,
and
we got a lot coming up. That I got a vacation coming up. We're going to. TwitchCon in San Diego. So we're going to be out of the office for enough weeks that we decided it would be best for our mental health and everything if we take another seasonal break. I know this one came a lot quicker than the first one did, but it's also a good thing because we already know a lot of the topics and guests and stuff that we're going to have when we come back. So it'll be worth the wait. And a little break and time off to recharge these batteries would be good for us as well. So. Just be patient with us.
Won't be a whole lot of recharging since we're going to be.
We will be busy. We will be busy, but the break is kind of needed in order to balance our lives out. So hopefully you guys understand, and we'll miss you. And hopefully you guys miss the show too, and you'll be back with us when we kick off season 3 with a bang.
Yeah, hope so. But we'll see you next week and all the good stuff. Thanks for sticking around.
Yep. See you guys.
Bye.